Dear stranger, I don't know what to write, so I just pull on the bevels of my laptop keys with my fingernails. I pull and pull and pull until it starts to hurt, and I stare blankly at nothing until tears well up again. And I sob so hard, I wonder if my heart is wringing itself dry. I don't know what to say, except that sometimes everything hurts so bad I don't know what to do. My arms quake and my legs shake, and I am a puddle. I am a string. I am a prayer wavering on existence, but never quite making it there. Hot cold burns up my arms, an elephant wakes up in my head. I can't think around it. I wonder what would happen if I tore this elephant out, dumped it onto a stretcher, and shipped it out of my brain. How would that weightlessness feel like? How do people live without that anvil seared inside their mouth? I wonder what it's like to laugh without having to claw your throat open first. I should stop this here. I can feel myself slipping. I don't know. I guess I'll talk soon. I have nothing else to say, even though I feel like I should end this on a positive note. I don't know. And what are you gonna do about it? What am I gonna do about it? I wrote this letter for myself. At 14, I still dabbled in bedazzled hairbands and wore shirts with neon slogans like, "You're looking at awesome." So when pain poked me all over like a scientific specimen, it was like depression and bipolar disorder had stitched a stranger in my place. You see, I wrote this letter to remind myself that despite what everyone else was saying, I was still me, that this was real, legitimate. I'm still me, and this is just me in the midst of trying. I wrote this letter as a secret, but here I am, reading it aloud for the public. You see, sound travels at a speed of 343 meters per second through air, so it's a little too late for me to take all that back. But if I took a step back, I guess it's better to not backtrack, because you see, this summer, I interviewed people about mental health. From the wealthiest districts of San Francisco, where a single bedroom apartment can cost more than an entire rural mansion, to neighborhoods where concoctions of drugs would punch through air to assault far more than nostrils, urine staining the streets like murals. No matter where I went, people would always blurt the same question. Hold on. You're doing this because you have a personal connection? How do you feel so sad at such a young age? Their faces were folding with shock, as if I blamed anxiety on the rising costs of avocado toast, or, God forbid, a B on a math test. I wonder if they think the chickenpox vaccine makes children immune to trauma and exhaustion too. Apparently, human emotions are too complex of sensations to be felt by youth. But 20% of youth aged 13 to 18 live with a mental health condition. 50% of all lifetime cases of mental illness began by age 14, and 75% by age 24. 37% of students aged 14 and up with a mental illness drop out of school. That's the highest dropout rate of any disability group. Suicide is the second leading cause of death in the US from the age of 15 all the way up to 34. That's crazy, right? I mean, get this, more than twice the number of Americans die by suicide a year than by homicide. Can you imagine if anything else had these statistics? I mean, here's an example. There were only 11 cases of Ebola reported in the entire US, but if you went online in 2014, it was like the goddamn apocalypse had arrived. If somebody coughed on the bus, I don't care if it was the Pope, we were all gonna die. So why doesn't mental health get the same attention? 800,000 people die by suicide every year worldwide. That's twice the number of American soldiers who died in World War II. Yet, even with severe depression, 80% of American youth receive no or insufficient treatment. And get this, we lose 1.6 million years of life every year due to suicide. So if we just stacked 40 years of suicides, we've got enough years to go back and see the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Serious mental illness costs the United States $193.2 billion in lost earnings every year. That's more money than Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates combined. So why is it that mental illness claims more money than the two richest people in the world? Why is it that when I talk about suicide, people pull me to the shadows, whisper as if we were criminals? Mental health is not a joke. Mental health goes wherever we go. Mental health conditions can affect anyone, anywhere, at any time, and any age. This is not a moral dilemma. No one chooses mental illness like they choose outfits. A textile merchant from Somalia once told me that mental health should be as normal as the rising and setting sun. We can't afford to wait until it's our sons holding to their head that gun. Why people don't seek help for mental illness is often because of stigma. At 14, I was diagnosed with anterior uveitis, this really fancy term, which basically meant that my eyes were inflamed and sometimes it would pop my eye spine for weeks or at least days at a time. And when I would reach out for help, the response was and still is always, yes, of course, you are so strong. But even now, I am terrified of talking about mental health. Afraid that if I said the wrong word, someone will tell me I'm crazy, dismiss all that I'm saying. Like admitting mental illness is giving them ammunition, and my voice is a tart. Afraid that if I spoke my truth, my story, someone somewhere will still tell me I'm romanticizing without bothering to let me finish. Tell me that I'm just making it worse. Say that you don't know what you're talking about. Please just shut up. Because what do I know about mental illness? What do I know about mental illness? Except that sometimes I see long, short ropes. I see flashbacks, frostbite crawling up my thighs, my eyes glazed over my head, berating XL sweaters, begging a God I didn't believe in to not let me pass him, to not let him see me. Am I alive? Am I alive? Am I alive still? Hurt slipped into my ears and my blood the way thunder slips into ears, by which I mean less of a slip and more of a tearing or a prayer. Loneliness can creep on you like old age. And sometimes I wonder even how in hindsight I still find pieces of my past tossed in between the lines. So what do I know about mental illness except that I am a human being? And if I were to bring mental health to the conversation, some people take that declaration as confirmation that I don't belong in this nation, like they're waiting for me to scream, do something real normal humans wouldn't. But I am here. And I started Letters to Strangers in my sophomore year of high school because I was exhausted of proving my humanness. Why can't people just treat people as people? The answer I knew spelled empathy. But how could anyone understand me if no one would listen to my story? Well, so that's why letters matter. You see, writing matters. Writing matters because when we erase the burden of judgment, when you know not my name, my background, or my diagnosis, my story becomes the only thing that matters. A human connection becomes the only viable solution. And for once, I have total agency. I will choose to write with a purple colored pencil. I will choose to write on stationery paper fortified with Chewbacca's and stripes. I will choose to write in cursive, adding an origami crane. I will choose to be the protagonist, but maybe next time I'll just listen in. I'll write, dear stranger, exhale the rust from my heart. A few months ago, I met Michael. Now, Michael had been homeless on the streets of downtown Berkeley for 17 years. Bipolar disorder had dulled his career, but not his spirit. After our talk, Michael looked at me with tears in his eyes, gray as the sea right before sunrise. And he said, I just want to be well enough to help somebody else. That's it. That's exactly what Letters to Strangers wants to do. You see, we write letters to strangers as strangers, exchanging between countries and schools and organizations dedicated to youth whose lives tore with the scar of war and abuse. We do this because a human connection matters. Empathy matters. Creative dialogue matters. Someone somewhere may be wondering the same questions as you. They may feel alone. But with your letter, that someone somewhere knows that someone somewhere thinks of them too. You see, writing is humanity distilled into ink. One letter, one human connection can and has saved a life. Over the past 4 years, Letters to Strangers has impacted over 27,000 people on 4 continents. And now we've expanded to beyond just letters. Now we fight for mental health by advocating for political reform, education, peer support networks, and you too can join the fight. You know, many public schools lack the legal and financial ability to properly accommodate students with mental disabilities. Why not call your legislators about that? Or about how we can't just shove anyone with any signs into a psych ward because our current system medicates and imprisons while neglecting to educate with peer discussions. Talking about mental health matters, not because of everyone who cares, but because of everyone who doesn't. If we're going to destigmatize mental illness, we're going to have to start by embodying the power of writing in our daily lives. So listen, ask questions, think before we speak. Understand before we interject. Trust that these conversations need to be had. Don't you dare talk yourself down. Write a letter to a stranger. Don't be afraid. Learn and fight. Don't joke about suicide and don't equate someone else's difference to a guarantee of a mental health condition. Don't insist on yoga as the one-stop solution. And don't buy into the lazy, toxic weakness of stereotypes and the insisting of people that you are weak because of a mental health condition. Mental illness can mean battling dragons only to find their nests in our chests, and we learn to live with fire. So where is the weakness in that? How can there be weakness in that? Someone, somewhere, August 2017. Dear stranger, almost 1 year on antidepressants, there's a lot to think about. I came out, I joined my Catholic school's LGBT group, started volunteering at an LGBT center, got my driving permit, started my first job, applied to scholarships, graduated from high school summa cum laude, was accepted to my dream school, celebrated my anniversary with my girlfriend. In all honesty, I am proud of what I've accomplished. But I still have depression and anxiety. Sure, I've learned to manage it better. I'm out of a long-lasting and deep rut, and my worst days are less frequent. But I still have days, weeks, when I see no point of getting out of bed or talking to anybody. My brain tells me I have no friends. I hear echoes sometimes when my head seems empty. What if I get worse again? What if the meds are the only thing keeping me somewhat sane? So what? Ups and downs are natural in life, and there's nothing wrong with needing a little help. So what? I'm managing each day. And that's what matters. What matters is that I'm alive, I've made strides, and I'm learning more about who I am every day. I'm still teaching myself that I am enough. I can see a light at the end of the tunnel, and I know each day is another chance for happiness. I will be damned if I don't give each chance my best shot. Yours truly, a stranger.